Hola, bon dia. Carl Monson here with the Good Morning Portugal show from expatsportugal.com. Who's whistling that theme tune? Already, I certainly am. Thanks again to Pete for creating that masterpiece, our intro and end idents, and a little bit of a please excuse me for 30 seconds section that he's created for me for the middle of the show as well. Cheers, Pete. Really appreciate it. We are doing places and spaces on a Thursday here on the Good Morning Portugal show. And I'm delighted to say we are going to, well, when I was growing up in England, they were called the Azores. And when I was... now that I'm here in Portugal, I now know that the better way to describe the Azores from the shipping forecast, I think, in the old days is, and I will, I'll risk my reputation here with my Portuguese pronunciation, but it should be more like Azores. We'll find out from somebody who lives there. Friend of the show, Carmen Sosa is here with us this morning. Good morning to you, Carmen.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I was just commenting that the sun is shining this morning, so it's going to be a good day.
Yes, indeed. Bon dia, alegria to you and to everybody this morning. And so delighted to be talking to somebody in the Azores. I mean, do people still call it that over there, or are you just completely used to it being known as the Azores?
I learned the pronunciation when I first started thinking of moving here, and pretty much here that's how everyone pronounces it, Azores.
Azores, fantastic. Okay, so talking of the weather then, if you will, let's have a little scroll through that. Then we'll say hello to all the wonderful people who've joined us this morning. And I was just saying to you, wasn't I, before we came on air, that I have a bone to pick with Hank and his Californian variant, but he's not here. Let's wait. We'll hold that. Hold that. But yes, what is it, you Californians, with your Californian variant that we're now worried about here in Portugal? Well, anyway, let's divert to the weather and let me put that on screen and see how it's looking after whatever it is. It's been now 725 days of straight rain. Let's see if there's anything different in the offing for us. And we'll go to the expatsportugal.com weather page. Here we go. Lisbon, 15 degrees currently, broken clouds. Look at that, a sunny day promised tomorrow. And the great news after that is it's just cloud and no rain forecast. So that's really good news. Porto, you might expect rain there. It is like the Manchester, if you're English, of Portugal, I think. But raining at the moment, 16 degrees the high today. A couple of days of rain, but a dry weekend, actually, a 3-day break, just a cloudy break, and then a bit more rain next week. Coimbra, 14 degrees and overcast. 18 degrees, the high today, but a bit rainy for the next couple of days. But look, a break in the rain. Anyway, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And finally, Faro, a sunny day promised tomorrow, Friday. 15 degrees, broken clouds at the moment, a high of 17. Let's scroll through all of these lovely parts of Portugal to find the official weather forecast for the autonomous regions. This is where Carmen finds herself. Yeah, this is what they say it is, Carmen. 15 degrees and a few clouds, rising to 16. And you've got some nice mild weather, but a little bit rainy. I think that's, would you say, normal? I mean, you're right out there, aren't you, in the Atlantic? Rainy weather is not uncommon at this time of year.
Yes, it's quite common this time of year. Almost every day we get at least a little bit of rain. Sometimes it's a downpour for a half an hour, but most of the time you'll just get a little bit of cloud cover coming over the mountains and a little bit of sprinkles. Rain, but almost every day we get a little rain.
Oh, yeah, okay. And people get used to, I guess, like living in Ireland or Wales, from my native UK and obviously Ireland over there. People just wear wool, don't they? A lot, and act like sheep. So
yes.
They
they become. You have your wellies on 24/7, and it's just part of the routine.
Oh, terrific. Okay, so before we go to all the lovely comments from people, tell us how you got to be there, because we need to know more about you and introduce you to everybody. You're a Texan by birth, or certainly that's the last place you came from, and you've made your home now in the Azores.
Yes. So I have lived in Texas most of my life, a few other places. but most recently in East Texas. And about 2 years ago, I closed down shop of the nonprofit work that I was doing, and I hit the road in a van and explored parts of the United States and dipped down into Mexico, and just decided that I was done with Texas. So I came home and decided where my next location would be. I always knew I wanted to retire in Portugal. I just didn't think it would be this soon. But I was originally going to go to the mainland and down to the Algarve.
Yeah.
But I wanted something a little more rural, a little more isolated, quiet. And my cousin had a trip planned to the Azores that got canceled because of the pandemic. And so I really wasn't familiar with the Azores at all. And she was sending me pictures, and I started doing research. And I made the decision to go to Portugal in August. And in October, I decided that Azores is where I needed to be. So
Wow.
yeah, I got here in December. It was literally a 4-month transition from making the decision to planting my feet here. So I'm a
That's
newbie.
And what a lovely story. I mean, nothing wrong with the Algarve, of course, and quite an obvious unsafe choice, but like
Yes.
a twist of fate or a plot twist there for you and your
Yes.
plans, which has had you be in the Azores, and you seem perfectly happy there.
Oh, it's absolutely more than I ever expected. It's so beautiful. The people are wonderful, and you have this very rural country vibe that is really something I've yearned for a long time, but I've never truly experienced it, especially on this level. And I can go down to Ponta Delgada if I want to have some resources that you can't get in the village. But for the most part, I'm fine just being in this little cluster of local folks. It's wonderful. It really is.
That's amazing. That's a really nice curveball, and I think that's not going to help people who are trying to decide which place to go to in Portugal, right? Because you know this is one of the massive challenges, isn't it? Of like, where shall I go? That looks nice, but then so
Yeah.
does that. Oh, and that does too. And I wasn't expecting that place, but I could live there. And now we've got another one for you this morning.
Right. Right. Right.
With your lovely story, Carmen. Okay, we've got so many friends who want to say hello here. Pam E is from Oregon. Good morning to you. Bon dia to you, Pam E, as well. Oh, look, the doc is back. Hola, bon dia a todos de la area. Back after mega road trip. He went back to the UK and came back, and he's going to give SEF a piece of his mind this morning. Well, make sure you can spare it. Make sure you can spare it, Andy. Bon dia from Londres, from Nick. Good morning to you, Nick, from Moscow. Bon dia, Andy. What happened with SEF? Look, the plot thickens. Peter, morning from a misty CDP. Shanfana cooking on the oven for friends to take away and eat tomorrow. Sounds wonderful. He always creates a lovely picture with words, does Pete? And actually, he creates a lovely picture with pictures as well, as we know. Fiona, bon dia, alegria. Good morning to you, Fiona. I think especially interested to be here talking with Carmen this morning because of our connection through the Happy Homesteaders and Get Out and Grow group, because Carmen's background is in, farmers markets, agriculture, and I'm so looking forward to talking to you about that, as well as the islands that you live on there. Pete Bleach, glad you got back safe and sound, Doc. You'll have to let us know how it went. Same journey in a few weeks. We might have to get him on the screen at some point, mightn't we? Or get him in the man cave tomorrow night to find out about this a funny thing happened on the way back to Portugal. Bon dia. A red devil from what does that mean, Joel? Is that like your those mood rings we used to have, and you can express yourself through an emoji in the morning? Elsa Riley, another beautiful day in paradise, bright and sunny again in North Wales. Still frosty and cold, but beats the rain any day of the week. Hi, everybody. Bon dia from Jacqueline Branco. Questions, folks, if you want to know what the Azores are like, and if you want to talk about seed swapping as well, seed banks. That's what we're going to be talking about too. Just get those questions in. Sun. Oh yes, Sun, Gary. Just so that you know, it's a kind of shiny thing that used to be in the sky from time to time. You might remember it from last year. Oh yeah, says Gary. There in Alviagra. Bon dia, hola bon dia, todos from Ireland, the aforementioned Ireland. Eugene McCrossan. He's probably always got his wellies on and a nice big woolly jersey there. Bon dia from Marcos Val. Bon. Oh yes, here we go. SEF police told me my paperwork was no longer valid since Brexit. Oh, I say. When I was coming back through the Spanish border, I told them I was waiting for my appointment with you. Guessed it. Yes, SEF. That must have been quite stressful, Doc. Bon dia from a snowy Jersey in the Channel Islands. Paul Williams from Tavira, Cabernet de Tavira. Bon dia alegria from a grey day. Important day today as it's haircut and beard trim day. It's funny, isn't it? The things that we now look forward to. Um, life is so much simpler, isn't it? Well, good luck. Good luck and have fun with that, Paul. And thank you very much as well for your very kind gift. Andy, the Doc Thompson, I applied for it in December. Yep, Andy the Doc not happy, and I think he will be, to use an idiom from the UK, tearing them off a strip. Frank, it's not, why am I calling you Frank? It's because we have Frank in our man cave. Hank, I meant to say, hola bon dia from California, and we've got a bone to pick with you, Hank. What is this about? Portugal increasingly concerned by signs of Californian variant. Hank, come on. Do what you can to help us over here. We don't need extra variants to be worrying about. But Hank is saying, hi, everyone, friends, comrades, brothers, and sisters. Very nicely put. Went back and forth till they eventually let me through. We're nearly there, Carmen. Sorry about this. The show is about talking to you, but all these lovely people need to say hello, and I have to let them say hello.
Of course.
Did you have the new QR code, Andy? I see. This is for getting through the border. Hank, can you drop a package at Disney for me? I don't know quite what that means. And careful, says Andrea. I am Welsh. I didn't say anything bad. I just said you had to become hardy, I think, in those weather conditions. Bon dia alegria from Australia as well this morning, from Mark. Good morning, Mark. Lol, Carmen, another accelerated retirement in Portugal. Yes, it's a great trend. Carmen, I lived in Jacksonville, Texas for 2 years, the longest 5 years of my life.
I totally understand.
Well, I think I get the gist as well. I haven't been there, but I know that's funny for some reason. But maybe we won't go into it just in case any other people who are here who love Jacksonville, and I'm sure some people do. Sometimes the temperature became more warm with the anticyclone from the Azores. Yes, I'm sure that's true. Carmen, question. Okay, let's get to the questions in the comments. What are the main reasons for leaving Texas, if you don't mind me asking? Yes, a great question, Gary, because a lot of us have a really high image of Texas and what fun it must be to live there. Do you mind us probing you for an answer to that?
Sure. So I've spent my entire life primarily in Texas, and I think I'm a wanderer at heart. I think I was just ready for something new. And Texas is a tough state for me. It's politically charged, and it's quite it's conservative on many levels to the extreme. And it was just difficult for me. And so when I was on the road for 2 years experiencing different cultures and went down to Mexico, it was just such a relief. And I thought, I need more of this. And so why not Portugal?
Amazing. Very nicely put. And I think, places can be amazing, but you have to have your needs met, don't you? And as amazing as a place can be, like, I'm from London originally, and so many people love London, want to go to London, and I can't imagine myself living there again. It's just, that's, for me, it's just, it's not just about the beautiful buildings and the history and so on. There are other aspects to life, aren't there? And you have to make sure your needs are met all the thing.
Right. And there are many aspects of Texas that are wonderful. I mean, it's got great barbecue. What more do you need?
Exactly. That's a man cave tick in the box if ever there was one. I'm going to have a look. Actually, now you've said that. Gail Lynn, Bon dia alegria. I can smell spring in the air. Yes, I think I can too. We're getting that because we've had the lamb born here, of course, and that really helps, and really lovely natural sign of things to come. You were meant to update your SEF number to a QR code. Oh, Pete's giving Doc a bit of coaching there about what he should have done. It's all very well now, Pete. Andy, be careful. We Brummies haven't got much to spare. That's about giving someone a piece of your mind, I think, that comment there. Especially... Yes, Carl, especially if Pete and maybe others are planning similar trips, happy to share. Okay, so this would be good to get the doc on the screen maybe next week to talk about how to tackle the borders, really. Bon dia from Povoa de Vagim up there in the north of Portugal. Am I awake or typing in my sleep? Coffee is needed. We could really set the scene for Mark, couldn't we? And pretend this is some sort of crazy dream of his. Should we should we make up some random stuff? No, you're awake, Mark. You do need more coffee. I applied in November. Oh, people are moaning about SEF. We want to talk about the Azores shit. No, I totally understand that, and we will get you on the dock, I think, for that. I saw the variances, Hank, but to be fair, we're dealing with the. He's unrepentant and right back at me there with the Kent variant, I think, from where my wife comes from. But bon dia from a sunny and cold Stockholm. Good morning to you, Anna. Bon dia Alegria is a kid's song. Have a look on YouTube. It's quite catchy, and that's about our level here, I think. So you can learn some Portuguese at the same time. Good tip there, Pete. And another Pete now, onto the other Pete. We did it online and got the QR code. So that can be done. You need your QR code. Worth noting, folks. I'd love to help you out, but I'm in the northern part of the state. Disneyland is like 600 miles south of me. I think in his heart, Joel really wants to go to Disneyland, Disney World. And maybe we should create a fund to fund him doing it when lockdown is over.
We can do a CSA. We can form
we can have yes,
a Disneyland CSA.
how lovely. Crowdfund for Joel's trip to Disney. Amazing. Okay. To Lol Gary, not a Brummie native. He's defending himself now. Just 35 years living there. And you might have the same sort of feelings that Carmen had about Texas. Possibly there. There is a difference between visiting a place and living there. Lots of folk enjoy visiting London, but living and working there is a very different experience. Absolutely. Andy the Doc Thompson, what crime did you commit? 35 years is longer than you get for murder. Brummie banter there. Brummie banter. Back to the Azores and a sensible conversation, I hope, now with Carmen. If we're lucky. The place of tea in... they still grow tea. You can see the tea fields, right, in the Azores. Tell us about what you've experienced and what you've been amazed by over there with its volcanic landscape.
Yes, I'm amazed at the growing space here. I really thought there would be little pockets of growing space around the island because it's a volcano, and it's just incredible everywhere. It's green and lush, and so I think that was the most surprising, is all of the growing space. And so I've been doing some research on what all of this green space is being used for, as far as agriculture, livestock, gardening, who owns the land, and what are they using it for. And it's just fascinating. It's really interesting. A lot of growing space.
And that's your thing, isn't it? From the few conversations we've had on social media and so on, you come from a background of supporting community agriculture, farmers markets, and so you're finding that alive and well in the Azores, are you?
I am. I am so new here and have so much to learn, but the farmers markets are a really important aspect to the community. And so the largest one is in Ponta Delgada that I've been to. I think Riviera Grande has a nice size one as well. Yeah, with so much growing space, I just have to think that schools are participating in growing, teaching the kids to grow. I don't know. I hope. And the most recent kind of thing that's hit my radar is the seed swapping interest, and that interests me as well.
Incredible. And yeah, I think that's so important because people, there is some sort of recession coming, no doubt about that. That's not news to anybody, is there? And in these times, people talk about, what to invest in, how to survive. And for me, it's always been about land and seeds that struck me as being the wisest investment. Food and shelter are so basic, aren't they? And that's why a lot of people are coming to Portugal, because they can afford to buy land and a space. They might have a water source, they might have fruit trees in a way that they might not in their native country. And so Portugal has so much going for it in that way, and I suspect the Azores do as well. And we had this very brief conversation before we started this morning about how what all the gloom and doom obviously in the pandemic is like, where are the highest numbers, all the negative effects of it and so on. But we're not really doing very much collective research or awareness about, so where is it working? And it would appear that in the Azores, with the scale, the autonomy of the Azores, the pandemic is being managed quite well, and it might be something to do with this localization thing. That's our theory, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
certainly on the face of it.
it is. I have to wonder because where I'm at, I can have all of my needs met right here in the village. Maybe the neighboring village that has another little market that might have something a little different than what my local market has. My next door neighbor has a beautiful garden, terraced garden. He's growing a ton of food and has shared bags of guava and tangerines and lemons and
Ooh.
herbs. And I have a dairy farm right across the way from me that I'm bringing food gifts to the farmer to try to cultivate that relationship so I can go hang out over at the milking parlor. But really, everything, I envision my landlord has goats and makes goat cheese. And how refreshing is it to know that I really don't need to go to the big city? And I mentioned earlier, unless I need the proverbial pink Himalayan sea salt, or
As you do, as you
right.
do.
Yes, I do. But it's so everything is here. It and can meet my needs. I'm putting in a little garden to grow some things that I want to have every day, but it's really refreshing.
Yeah, and it seems, doesn't it, that those standard bearers, the people who got a little bit twitchy in maybe the 60s and 70s, the Red Silent Spring, and saw the way things were going, thought to themselves, okay, well, we're going to cultivate a bit of our backyard or even their front garden, much to the upset of their suburban neighbours. And we're going to think about food, and we're going to think about living locally and operating locally and being more community focused rather than at the other end of the spectrum of complete sort of globalization. It looks like that's been quite a sensible move, or a quite an interesting sensibility to develop.
It is absolutely in East Texas. I was involved in several different projects, and one was working with another organization that did homesteading workshops every month.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it was so interesting that, when it comes to growing your own food and being independent in that way, as far as your skill set and access to food. It's interesting how there's something for everyone in this group. And it's funny that the gentleman that said he was in Jacksonville for 2 years, that's where the workshops were all held. But in this group of workshop attendees, you had the hippie set that was back to the land, tree huggers is what everyone called them, and kind of spoke a different language, tattoos and dreadlocks and all of that. And then you have kind of on the opposite spectrum are the preppers, and then you have the doomsdayers, but they're all gathering for the same purpose of being independent, and independent in the sense of growing their own food, but developing their own community within those like-minded people.
Yes, yeah, and I think we're finding balance with that, aren't we? Because I do understand that sort of, especially at the moment, you can understand why people are getting a bit doomsday and wanting to head to the hills with their, is it bullets and beans or whatever they call it. You see, you see some of the most extreme examples of that, don't you, from the United States? But
Yeah.
it's one thing being independent, isn't it? But it may be more useful to become interdependent, and I think that's what you're talking about, and that's the life you're seeing in the Azores, right? There is
Yeah,
a sense of
exactly. Independence, not the right. Interdependent is exactly what it is, and that is what I'm seeing here for sure.
how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Carolyn is asking, how much more expensive is it to live there in Azores? What, if anything, are you finding either hard to get or more expensive than on the mainland? And I think this is how, now talking to you, the Azores are going to be added to people's lists to be assessed.
I was a little hesitant to come on the show because I think this is really the best held secret is is the Azores. So,
Yeah.
um, but no, I get the secret's out. But I don't really have experience on the mainland. I was there in 2016, and I was venturing up and down the country. But as far as living expenses and all of that, I don't really have anything to compare it to as far as the mainland. I can definitely compare it to the cost of living in the United States, but I don't know if that would be a fair comparison. Rumor has it that pretty much anything that you want or need can be found in Ponta Delgada. There's Continente has several huge stores. There's shopping malls. There's many car dealerships, and it's just a bustling big city. So I would imagine that anything you want or need could be found there. It's been my goal for the past maybe 5 years, especially 2 years living in a camper van, and then since I moved here, to really cut my consumption, other than great food, but to really cut. So I've bought 10 things since I've been here that weren't food related. So
Wow.
yeah, my goal is to use what I have, and which fit in 5 suitcases, and really think about what it is I think I might need to purchase. So I really don't, I really can't answer that better than, I just don't know how
Yeah.
prices are compared to the mainland, and big purchases maybe.
No, I understand that, but that's fascinating in its own right. So you've bought 10 things that are non-food related. I think you're getting your priorities right there,
Yeah, yeah,
personally speaking.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing. So I know there was that, Carolyn, thank you very much for that question. And I'm sure this is a theme we will return to in terms of those comparisons. But I'm very inspired by what Carmen's saying here. The advent of was it the Minimalist movie that was on Netflix, and people thinking, oh,
Yes.
yeah, I do have 10,000 things, and maybe I can be like that guy on that movie who narrowed it down to 150. Did you go through a process like that?
Oh my goodness, yes. I come from a long line of collectors and borderline hoarding
Yes.
problems. And I inherited that gene. I collected, and then when family has passed, I've inherited all of their belongings.
Yeah.
And at one point, I had a 2-bedroom house and 2 storage units because I just couldn't part with my stuff. But again, when you go from living in a house to a 16-foot camper van, you learn how to do well with less. And, 2 forks, 2 knives, 1 plate, 1 bowl, and you make it work. And then when I got off the road and back into my house, and I knew I wanted to move, I started, as I would use something and then I would set it on the counter. And before I went to get another utensil, I would look to see what was already on the counter that I'd used, to see if I could just make do with that. And I ended up making do in my house with very few things. And so it helped solidify the thought that I need to purge.
Yeah.
And when I made the decision to move, I sold and gave away everything, except what fit in my 5 bags and a small moving box that I shipped to my brother. That I didn't want to bring it to Portugal, but mementos, a few mementos, things like that. But but the process was really painful in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I really focused on my goals and my priorities. And my priorities were not coveting and caring for all of these things anymore. It was new experiences and traveling light so that I can move. I don't know how long I'll be in the Azores. I would love to get a camper van and travel Europe, but I'm happy and settled where I'm at. But I can move. I can move very easily, and that's important to me right now.
Amazing. What an inspiring story. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Joel is getting his official warning this morning already, I think. Stop being such a grumpy old giffer. And even if he doesn't know what that word means, I'm sure he gets the sentiment of that. Fiona is saying, if Portugal is as it's meant to be closed, with all the people who do manage to arrive having to isolate and provide a clear test before coming out of quarantine. Just how do these new variants get in? Is it all the important business meetings? I think those bunny ears say a lot, Fiona. Where the elite members of society don't need to follow any rules. Sorry, brain overload on this. Yeah, I can understand why, Fiona, actually. Joel, still going on. Not even Disneyland Paris I would visit. I have standards. Azores is unique to have many tea farms from all of Europe, says Marcos. Marcos, always a mine of information about matters Portuguese. Carmen, from Eric. Carmen, yes, barbecue was the highlight. Did you make it to Country Tavern in Kilburn? Favorite stop? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
for the jalapeno mac and cheese.
Oh, now you're talking. Hold on.
Yeah.
This is a favourite stop of the Bushes, as in the presidential Bushes, I'm guessing, rather than the tea bushes. And Dallas's Larry Hagman, is that, or Larry Klugman, or both?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
incredible,
Yeah.
Eric.
Oh,
Okay.
Carl.
I think Texas is being sold well this morning.
Yes.
Not being offensive. Are we still going on about Disneyland? Carmen, how is the ecodiversity there, countering the monoculture promoted by international seed producers? Now, we're moving on to seeds now, aren't we? And the
Yes.
idea of seed swapping. I mean, really, when there are some seed swapping groups, and they are Portugal related, but we were thinking of maybe creating a little bit of a seed swapping network between us in the Happy Homesteaders community. Good morning, Portugal, and so on. But yeah, but what do you say about that question, particularly ecodiversity, and are the F1s taking over?
Uh, that I don't know yet, but I will. I will have a better understanding of that as I move forward here. But I think that monoculture is significant here, and the impact of that, I'm sure, is great. I don't have a complete understanding of all of that. I
Mm,
see it across the street from me with the dairy farmer to some extent,
yes,
and my next door neighbor that has the beautiful terraced garden that's doing quite the opposite. He's
yes.
rotating. He has goats and the chickens and the turkeys, and he's constantly out migrating the animals. And I've talked to him about his growing space. So it's really interesting, the kind of opposite ends of the spectrum with both of my neighbors.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, but I hope to know more, especially about the seed availability here, and if it is kind of a monopoly on the corporate seeds, or if there's what are the I'm interested in knowing what my neighbor has done to get seeds and where he's getting them, and is he saving them, and that sort of thing.
Well, I think there's a little note to the collective self here to save seeds, to send seeds to others. So let's begin that. I would love to be part of sending. I mean, how exciting to receive seeds in the post that somebody has carefully put to one side.
Yes, yes. I think it's a really, really important thing. I'm very interested in native seeds, heirloom seeds that are indigenous to a region,
Yeah.
and I think that having a community seed library countrywide, including the Azores, I think would be absolutely amazing. I've done some research and I haven't found like a central location or even several organizations that are collecting these types of seeds. But I managed a seed library in East Texas, and it was wonderful. We had have a really strong Mexican population and Mexico, Central and South America population, and so we had quite a few interesting seeds because that's what a lot of the people in the community wanted to grow
Mm.
were fruits and vegetables from their native land. And the growing conditions are very similar in parts of East Texas. So I kind of tossed out the idea of, if anyone's interested in having a seed library, I would be happy to organize it. I would be happy to be the steward of seeds, and I would be willing to ship and receive and organize, catalog the seeds and make them available. I just don't know if there's a need. I don't know if it's already being done, or if folks are even interested in participating in something like that.
So that's our first step, I suppose, isn't it, to establish whether that is the case, whether there's a collective national seed library, seed swapping service in Portugal. So if anyone knows the answer to that, let us know. And if there isn't, we could begin to look into that because, going back to this investment thing, people were talking about, yeah, you should buy gold at the moment, you should buy silver, you should buy cryptocurrency. I understand that. And I can see how fiat currency is having its day, and how risky and what a sort of Ponzi scheme the investments can be in the what am I thinking of, the stock market. But you still can't eat gold or silver, can you?
That's right.
You can't eat
That's
Bitcoin. And that's not to write it off. I think these are obviously good ideas in their place, but we might be forgetting the most obvious and essential thing of investing in land and investing in seeds, because you actually can eat land effectively, can't you? And you can eat seeds eventually. So
right.
I'm all for this wonderful idea, and I think it represents the true wealth, not only of humans, but it represents the wealth, the natural wealth of the land and the country where we find ourselves as well. So, and I love this idea you have of how you can look out of your window, and maybe to the left you see the sort of globalized approach to agriculture, and on the right you see your neighbour on his terraced ground there. And we don't really hear much about the picture on the right-hand side because it's not measured, is it? We know it's there, but it's not measured as part of GDP or anything like that, the figures that people go on.
Right. Yeah. You're exactly right. Yeah. How do you put numbers to it?
Yes. But we know in our hearts there's something right going on there.
Yes. Yes. And I think that another important component to that equation is sharing knowledge.
Mm.
Along with having a seed library, I think it's important to have folks that are open to sharing the knowledge of saving the seed, growing the seed. Simple, plant a bean. It's the easiest thing to grow. If you can get a kid to grow a bean, you've got a customer for life. So I think that the knowledge sharing is a huge component of all of these things.
Yeah, and you've got knowledge on how to start a farmer's market, I understand. So we'll come back to that, because I think so many people, so many expats in Portugal think there's such a wealth of produce here. Let's start a farmer's market. Probably not as easy as just saying that, but we'll come back to that because we have more questions for you. Pete, question for Carmen: How have the businesses in your area fared without tourism? Yes, of course. So it does rely on tourism over there. Has the village fared well, Carmen?
Right. So my village in particular, Jeanette, is not a huge tourist attraction, but I can tell you that the restaurants have suffered from the flow through traffic. Mosteiros is the next larger village down, which is very much a tourist attraction. They're suffering greatly because they have tour organizers, and I think in your larger villages, they're suffering greatly. And property owners that have holiday rentals are suffering because right now is when tourism starts ramping up, and property owners are discounting their prices. They're looking for long-term rents, and they're wanting to keep the June, July, August months open. So for long-term rent, they'll book you through May, and then they want to have the option to rent to holiday or tourists during the busy season, because they're fetching 80, 150 euros a night.
Yes.
And versus a long let monthly rental might be between 500 and 1,000 euros for the month.
Yes.
So they're suffering a lot. There's a lot of holiday properties that are for sale. I'm familiar a little bit with the holiday rental market just by virtue of visiting with my landlord and learning from her. But it's tough all the way around. A lot of restaurants have closed. I think that the businesses that are booming are the cervejerias, the rabbit ear, the snack bars in the village, right? Yeah. Where the locals hang out and have a beer. I think they're doing really well.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. That's the lifeblood of social life in a village, isn't it? So where there's a natural resilience, obviously they're coping. and where it's premised solely or mostly on tourism, understandably, that's a struggle at the moment. You have a neighbour here, Bon dia alegria from Terceira, coming from America. I love living in the Azores. Welcome. There you go.
Thank you. Thank
Uh,
you.
Gary is calling Joel Victor Meldrew II. It's worth looking up Joel to find out what he thinks of you. Type in Victor Meldrew. Not a bad comparison, actually, Gary. Rizal in Lisbon, Bon dia alegria. And just scrolling through, I'm scrolling past. I don't want to get involved in that Star Wars, Star Trek talk there this morning because I know how controversial that can become. Tree hugging. You mentioned tree hugging, Carmen. Can't beat some timber tenderness. That's a really nice way of putting it, Gary. Obviously,
Yes.
difficult for Gary at the moment to get out and do that, which he does. Do excuse me. He's known for that in his area. The Azores have the dual benefits of being islands in the Atlantic and scale. The population is only a quarter of a million. I didn't realise it was that big. Check infection in those arriving, and a local scale of track and trace means better control of spread. Small scale can have significant benefits, and this is true, isn't it? You know, the scale of the place, the autonomy from Portugal to some extent, I think has been a couple of good factors for the Azores. Would you agree, Carmen?
Yeah, I would. I was doing some research on São Miguel, and we have around 120 hectares. Is it hectares? Hectares?
I say hectares. Yeah, some people
Hectare.
say
We have
hectare.
120,000 hectares of growing space, and that's tremendous for an island that's 40 miles by 10 miles. I'm still trying to convert from my U.S. metrics, but I think that the small scale does have significant benefits for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Gary, how big is the Azores? How long to get from one? You said so 40 by 10. How long
Yes.
does it take to get, as another way of looking at it, how long to get from one end of the island to the other, and what's transport like over there?
Yeah, so transport's great. We have these luxurious public buses. They're like the motor coaches. They're At
Yes.
first I thought they were filled with tourists, but they're not. They're filled with locals. There's bus stops in every village, and there's a main road that goes around the island, and then there's several main roads that cut through. But because the majority of the roads around the island are very windy, you're going up and down hills and kind of mountainous areas, even though it might only be 10 miles away, it might take you 40-45 minutes to get there.
Yep.
So literally from Jeunesse to Ponta Delgada, it's, I think, right at 10 miles, 12 miles, but it takes me 45 minutes to get there because you're going through many of the small villages, the winding roads. I've not even gone to the eastern end of the island. I'm on the far western end. And so I don't know how long it would take, but for me to go to Furnish, which is a little more than halfway over, and spend some time and come back, it's a full day trip. So it's a small island, but it's the terrain is quite varied.
I think people in central Portugal can relate to that. Just driving to the other side of the valley is a half a day out, and yeah, but that has another sort of familiar oldie worldy comfort to it, doesn't it? That is a proper day out. If you go to the capital, it is a day out. You're not just jumping in the car like you would, a lot of modern living is like just jumping in the car and go to the shops. You are going for the day, and you plan
That's
accordingly.
exactly right. Yes,
Yeah.
I go into the city on Fridays, and
Okay.
I don't go every Friday, but if I do go, it's going to be on Friday because the fishmongers are at the market,
Yeah.
and I can get all of my necessities that I can't get in the village, which I'm going this Friday to get fish, and that's all I need. Everything else I can get here locally. And another nice thing before I forget is many things that you consume day in and day out food wise can be delivered. There are produce trucks, there's bread, cheese, meat, seafood. As long as you know who's delivering, which That's key, because and it's not something that people give up easily. They don't want to share their resources easily, but you can trade locally and really not even have to leave your house, and you're supporting all the little farms and bakers and cheese makers and all of that, which is lovely.
Blessed are those cheesemakers. Fantastic. Okay. We are getting a lot of love for your downsizing, your minimalism. Yes, I love how Carmen downsized. We downsized from a 3-bedroom to 2 suitcases, and that feels like too
Wow.
much. It's amazing.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
so true, isn't it? Yes, Carmen, great strategy. Minimalism is the great place to be, says Hank. Yeah, Pete saying the doc saying a great strategy. Aloha from Leah Lucas. I love your show. So very true. It's better to be a minimalist. The Purge. Good morning to you, Leah. Lovely to have your company this morning. Donna, your neighbour. The Azores are 9 islands, and they are all a bit different. So all of that to look forward to, Carmen, as well.
Yes, yes.
As a small bus dweller, I found getting rid of stuff incredibly freeing. That says girting. Sounds like a Bristolian habit of minimalism, girting rid of stuff. Adrian Caffrey, bon dia alegria. Hello, Adrian. How are you today? Peggy Prosecco. Peggy's here. Good morning to you, Peggy, as is Grassa. Grassa saying hola to all present as well this morning. Good morning to you, Grassa. Carmen, also someone that has moved many places. Does living there feel restrictive on your desire to wander or wander?
No, no.
Okay.
I go probably twice a week, sometimes more, on little adventures, and I'm getting further and further out. But I love to hike. I love to explore, and I'll just park the car and try to find a hiking trail. That's what I love to do, and wandering the villages. And this is all so new to me. The architecture is new, the language, the food, everything is so new.
Mm.
And so this little island is full of wonder and excitement for me. And I'll be really curious to see if I decide to settle down long term and find a place where I can have a real garden for all of the seasons, or if I start getting itchy feet. 3 to 5 years is kind of my limit on staying in one place or focusing on one single project. So it'll be interesting to see how I land.
Well, that's the great conundrum, isn't it? For those of us who have this sort of happy homesteader wish, and then you get some pets. You might have a cat and a dog, and then you get some chickens, and then a sheep or a goat might come. That's not compatible with the thing Eric's talking about, is it? Of like thinking, okay, now I must go to Europe or South America. How
Right.
do we manage that?
Right, but there are so many organizations and individual families and businesses that would love to have helpers.
Okay.
And like Wolf, the WWOOF, Worldwide Organic, I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah,
But
woofing. You know that. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So there, if I get the desire to harvest oranges, I'm going to be able to find a farm where I can just submerge myself in all things orange. And I think that there are some organizations that are Woofing, HelpX. I mean, they're where you can just log in, find a location. That's actually HelpX is actually what sparked my interest in Portugal many years ago. Is there was a olive and goat farm. They made their own olive oil and goat cheese, and they were looking for helpers. And I had never heard of such a thing. I didn't even know that something like that was possible, to where you could just show up with the clothes on your back. They provide room and board in exchange for work hours, and I just thought that was fantastical.
Amazing. Of
So,
course it is,
yeah,
yeah. And similarly, if you created your own homestead, you can leave that in the hands of people wanting that experience. So you can move around.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is that how I spell HelpX? Because I've put woofing in there.
Yes,
Okay.
I think it's just X, not
Okay.
EX.
As
I
in
think
help exchange, presumably there. Okay, that's really good to know.
I
And that
think
might be a little bit of a workaround for itchy feet if and when the time comes. Just tuning in with PJs and Prosecco. Sorry, Carmen, you're about to ask something there.
no, I was just going to say, and another thing is just meeting your neighbors that have growing space, like Jose that lives next door, I hope to help work in his garden in the spring, and with planting and harvesting and all of that, and so I can have some of my needs met just borrowing other people's growing space.
Yeah, that's a good way forward, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if you do want to do the citrus trail, as you mentioned, you could look no further than Peggy, who's saying you look bright and cheery. She's in
Oh,
the
thank you.
Alps, so you could have an orange experience there. And another offer here, Carmen, if you do get to Wondermore, come up and visit me. I think we have a ton of stuff in common. That's more of a central Portugal vibes there. Great,
Fabulous.
Adrian, great Tex-Mex in Texas.
Yes.
From Mexican with lashings of margaritas. Fond memories or
Yeah.
not for people of Texas. Shelley, good morning, Shelley. Have they used a lot of glyphosate on the islands as they have on the mainland? Do you know
I
yet?
don't know. I don't
Okay.
know.
Don't really want to know, do we? But I guess we have.
I know.
Inconvenient truth, perhaps. Lived in the Azores for 3 years, a long time ago, but left before I'd stay for good. Visited a couple of times and will love it, and we'll be back again. Antonio F., a native Portuguese man, loving the Azores there. Would love to share. My hubby says that I have enough flower seed from our yard to populate Portugal.
Oh,
That's the spirit.
fabulous.
Yes, therein lies our true wealth, I think,
Yes.
Peggy. You put the nail on the head there. Are there no import restrictions on importing seeds or plants from elsewhere? Do you know about that yet? Because we'll have to face that, won't we?
Yeah, I've posed a couple of questions on some of the local groups, seed swapping, transplant groups, and I've been told that there are no restrictions coming from Portugal to the Azores, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. That's a good start. Indigenous Seeds Community Seed Library. Love it, says the doc.
Good.
Be promoting ecodiversity and traditional plants in recovery plans around Marinha Grande after the fires of a few years ago. Nice one, Doc. You could call your library Need for Seed. We will write that one down. That's great, Elsa. And
I
I
like
imagine you might send a few back and forth to North Wales as well. I'm interested in the seed library, and yes, there are seed swaps going on in Portugal, but more of an actual library would be fantastic. Also, for all such things, join Swap and Share in Central Portugal if you are in this area for sharing all kinds of everything: produce, clothes, home furnishing, seeds, tools, etc. Excellent. Imagine Midas trying to eat with his hands, where everything turns into gold. Thank you, Joel. How do we find Carmen? Does she have a website, says Carla Freeman? So that's a good question.
I have a personal like travel journal website, and I was thinking that if the seed library idea goes off or catches on, that I could migrate it over to my personal website, but I really don't. I'm on Facebook. The organizations that I'd founded and worked with in East Texas, those pages are pretty dormant. Because I haven't been active in a couple of years in those programs. So my personal Facebook page, I guess.
Okay, or come through the Happy Homesteaders group as well. We'll get
Yes,
out and
that'd be
Happy
great. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. Yes,
All
yes,
right, I'll put the link up for that in just a moment before we
that'd
go.
be perfect.
Thank you for that question, Carla. Hi, Carmen. Is that the top of an easel? I see. Have you taken up painting, Christina from
Oh,
Qashqai?
actually, that's funny. That's not an easel. That's a chair on my dining
Oh
room
yes.
table. But yes, I have taken up painting. I actually finished my second painting. I'm trying my hand at watercolors. So I brought all of my supplies here, and I'm starting to do some sketches as I go out and about wandering around. So yeah,
What a
thanks for
life!
asking.
What a
Yes,
hiking and sketching sounds idyllic.
yes,
We didn't mention investing in wine alongside seeds and Bitcoin, but the problem for Paul here is he invests in wine, but he tends to drink it. Yeah, that is a problem. You have to get some of those little padlocks that they put on in supermarkets. I think when an alarm goes off if you try and move it from your library. B is where the Portuguese. What does that mean? B is where the Portuguese party ended up. Contact them, Carmen, for people who will be interested and experienced. So, B, is that a part of the Azores there? Sorry, forgive me, Doc, for not recognizing what B might be. Gary, I know I'm cranky. Thanks for stating the obvious. That's a kind of cranky response in its own way, Joel, as if to prove the point. The Azores are 9 islands, so you can't travel them all by bus,
no,
Gary.
no.
So
Some of them are very far away, and I think I can get to 2 islands by ferry, and the rest I have to fly to because they're quite far apart.
incredible. So even more of an adventure then, by the sound of
Yes,
it. San Miguel reminds me of a small garden of Eden. It's so beautiful, says Rita. Portugal has the most beneficial sea areas for fishing in Europe. These are all the wonderful tick boxes and all the reasons why we love Portugal. I'm realizing we're not going to have time to talk about farmers markets or community supported agriculture. Will you come back, Carmen, to do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'd love
Absolutely.
it if you did, 'cause I think it's so important. But lots of questions for you here and comments that are being made. Hank, going to have fun getting Mrs. Hank to downsize. Does anybody need 3 broken sewing machines? Ernest and I sold everything and moved to Portugal with 2 suitcases each. Oh, and the golf bag, of course. Penny, bon dia, my fishmonger texts me every Thursday morning once he's been to the fish market and lets me know what's
Yes.
up. Isn't that cool? So the best of both worlds there. New technology and old school fish delivery. He then
Yes.
drops whatever we've chosen, hangs it on our gate in a socially distanced way. Beautiful.
Yes, yes. That's how I learned about some of the deliveries, because I was driving through the village and I kept seeing plastic bags with bread and these kind of crocheted looking bags stuffed with produce hanging on people's gates at the entrance to
Yeah.
their house. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a wonderful culture. Bon dia, Carmen. How long did it take you to minimize your belongings? I'm in the process and have a lot like you also. 4 generations of photographers. So there'll be some really good kit in there, I think. And I'm at the end of the chain. How long did that process take, Carmen?
Oh, my connection. Can you hear me, Carl?
Yes, I got you now. You're frozen up a little bit, but I can hear you. Yeah, you're back again now. Hello. I was just about to comment on how brilliant the connection was to the Azores. No problem there with the gate, the fibre or whatever it is. But we seem to have lost Carmen there, unfortunately. That's going to be a cliffhanger, Jenny, I think. And plus a few more questions. So I think we're going to have a part 2 of Carmen joining us again on the show here, just to resolve that thing that the doc was talking about BE. I think that came up somewhere, which would be very useful, but now I can't find it. That's oh dear. But I think it's to do with oh yes, Bloco Esquerda. That's the political party, isn't it? That will be over there, and the possibly a good connection for Carmen to make in terms of this project. Here she is. Look, she's coming a different way. This is clever. Oh, there you go.
Sorry
Not
about
at all.
that.
That's not a problem.
So it took me 2 months
Yeah.
to part with the majority of my things. And my photographs were actually the very last thing that I completed. I ended up getting an Epson fast photo scanner and hired a college student to scan all of my photos for me and digitize them, and my memorabilia and newspaper clippings from my mother's wedding in the 1950s.
Yeah.
But that took the longest. But yeah, from start to finish, about two to 3 months total.
Incredible. And a very purposeful and well-planned process by the sound of it.
Yes.
I think I'm so sorry that we've just kind of hit the deadline there, hit the timeline, and need to conclude now. But I would so love you to come back to talk about farmers markets, community-supported agriculture, an update on the seed swapping. Would you do that for us, Carmen?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And this is lovely sentiment to end on here. Penny saying, I really miss growing crops with my grandchildren. I'm going to send them some seeds this year to grow in their own garden. And therein, that sort of epitomizes, sums up the beauty, doesn't it, of seed swapping and sharing. Thank you, Penny, for that. Thank you, Carmen, for being with us this morning. I look forward to seeing you again soon and hanging out with you in the Happy Homesteaders Get Out and Grow group. Thank you so much.
Lots of love. Great. Thanks. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. And here's Pete's movie. Ciao, ciao. Bye for now. See you this evening on the webinar. Bye.